स्मार्ट दिसून येईल.
है क्या अनूप कुछ
वही है सेम थिंग
Yeah, we had a backup too.
अरे मोबाईल
Yeah.
मोबाईल
तुझा मोबाईल तुझा मोबाईल
We just get to
मोबाईल
do
कोणाला
so
दिला?
that,
अच्छा तो याला दिला होता, राजीवला दिला होता.
कुठं गेला
राजीवकडे आहे तुझा मोबाईल. हा, ते शशांक फोनवरती होता ना.
बीएसजी के चैनल को कोई सब्सक्राइब है क्या? तुम्ही आहे का? बीएसजी च्या चॅनलला सबस्क्राईब
तू आणतो का
ते
स्वतःचा
नोटिफिकेशन आलं असेल.
ठीक आहे.
MIT गेस्टला होतं म्हणे ना इथं तो सांगा.
MIT and MIT guest.
MIT गेस्ट दोन्ही कुठलाही यूज केलं तरी होईल. So everybody got the notepads, especially students. Good. And there are pens also. Well, Shashank hai yaar. Umang, you got Shashank or you got Harshad?
Harshad is here. Shashank was coming, but Swaroop needed his phone, so I kind of directed him close to.
Oh, okay.
I hope he'll be able to.
स्टार्ट कर दो.
झालंय सुरू.
Oh.
Let's get started then.
यार नहीं कंप्लीट.
Yeah, it's coming. It's live.
Venkat, you have the agenda with you.
I have agenda and my
Oh, yeah.
phone.
That
Yeah.
folder you have got. So in
Print
that
कर दो.
and printed. Where is the printed folder?
ते बॅग मध्ये
Give it to Venkat. Printed folder.
बॅग नाही.
Okay, ठीक आहे. राहू दे.
कुठे त्या रूम मध्ये आहे का? स्वरूप त्या
तू
रूम मध्ये आहे
तू इकडेच राहा सध्या थोड्या वेळ.
बॅग त्या रूम मध्ये आहे का?
हो.
प्रेझेंटेशन लागेल. राजीवला सांग त्या रूम मध्ये याची बॅग आहे बोलते.
Okay.
सांगून दे त्याला कशी आहे बॅग.
त्या स्क्रीन नाही होत का?
आता ते एक दुसरंच आहे. आपण नंतर ब्रेक नंतर करेल.
ब्रेक नंतर करतो. ओके. चल.
लाईट्स
लाईट्स ऑन करून घ्या सगळे.
Yes.
नाही मग ते वाला थोडस हे होणार आहे मग. पण लाईव्ह स्ट्रीमिंग ते इथून होतं ना, राईट? लाईव्ह स्ट्रीमिंग इथून होतं, राईट?
हो दिसतंय. हा कॅन स्टार्ट.
तुला रिस्पॉन्स मिळतो का लोकांचा जे ऑनलाईन आहे
हो, हो.
त्यांचा? कॅन यू चेक देम वेदर कॅन यू जस्ट सेंड द मेसेज वेदर
Chat चालू.
पण दिसत आहे. ओके लेट्स
ओके
गेट स्टार्टेड.
वो स्प्रेड कर दो.
असं दिसतं.
ठीक आहे.
It's good now.
संजय इज विजिबल.
Yes, Sanjay is visible.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all, depending on where you are attending this seminar from. My name is Sanjay Bhagat, and I am a member of Global Empower Network. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to the city of Boston and Cambridge, which is a mecca of the education. Jane is organizing student seminars since last 3 years. Vinaya will be telling us more about Jane in few minutes. However, as a person who is associated with this organization since its inception, I witnessed its phenomenal growth and reach out to students from India. I witness how Jane is instrumental in materializing dreams of students from India by providing mentorship, encouragement, and support on various fronts. Please give big round of applause to all these selfless mentors who put a lot of efforts in keeping claim of Jane Burn. Few housekeeping things for the people who are attending here. Please mute all your mobiles. Restrooms is just nearby. As soon as you get out of the door, there are the restrooms. and we have snacks, teas, and coffee available. We will have the tea coffee break of 15 minutes at 10:30, and again in the afternoon at 3:30, and then we will have lunch at 12:30. All speakers will be timed for their presentations. The 5 minutes before their assigned time, timer will show the green card. Yellow card before 3 minutes so that they can start wrapping, and red card will be shown at the end of assigned time. Since we have a very busy schedule, I request you all the speakers to stick to their assigned time. Now let me introduce my good friend, Dr. Venkat Maraju, who will be our Commander-in-Chief for the whole day. Dr. Venkat Maraju is Chief Executive Officer of Source Stress Systems, a company that has become a global leader in providing software solutions to agriculture and allied sectors, empowering more than 600,000 smallholder farmers in developing countries. Venkat had been invited to speak at international conferences such as UN Forum for Business and Human Rights, World Bank, USAID, Global Forum for Innovation in Agriculture. He also spoke at numerous universities such as MIT, Harvard, Old Dominion University, just to name a few. Prior to joining SourceTrace, Venkat had founded Factum Ventures, a holding company in India that set up and promoted new business ventures in sustainable agriculture, microfinance, and renewable energy. He worked in the corporations like Bose as Divisional Information Officer and held a leadership position at Compu Eco, a subsidiary of the Fiat. Venkat has won several awards, including the Entrepreneur of the Year in 2016 by the Old Dominion University and the Agri Startup Award in 2018 for the Innovative Model and Excellence in Digital Platform at the Agri Startup Convention in New Delhi. Venkat holds an MBA from MIT Sloan School of Management and was a Sloan Fellow of Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He holds a PhD in engineering from Old Dominion University and Masters in Engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Venkat is associated with almost all Ambedkarite organizations in North America. He is a founder member of Boston Study Group and the Ambedkar International Center. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Venkat Maraju.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjay ji, and JB. Good morning, and good evening to all those in the. Where is the streaming going? From there or from here? Okay. So they can't see us. It's dark.
No, they can.
They can. How is that? Because it's I'm showing very dark here. Yeah, I mean like the background. Yeah, I am dark. That is different issue. But just want to make sure, you know. Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay, let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay. Pardon?
We can see you okay.
Yeah. No. I'm just want to make. So I want to welcome to all Gen members and new students as well as people from India to Boston, and I'm very happy that Boston Study Group and my colleagues, we are on behalf of Boston Study Group, I want to express our thanks and gratitude for hosting this wonderful occasion, event, and give us an opportunity to interact with all of you all over the world. And as Sanjay ji has mentioned, I think Jen has been, I haven't been involved a lot, but I keep hearing about Jen work from a number of my colleagues here in Boston, as well as Vinaya, a good friend, dear friend Vinaya. And this is one of those very much needed for our communities. And I'm glad, I think Vinaya and our friends have taken up, and we can see the progress. I mean, I think there are 22, 23 students came to this year, so it's a very good achievement when they started a couple of years back. And then we are also very happy that there are 7 students came to Boston. So that's another amazing thing happened this year. So I will be basically acting as a master of ceremony. So I was put in this spot, so I'll do my best to keep the time and keep the program going. So before I just have a few quick thoughts to share. So Sanjay, who is keeping the time?
Just see.
Okay. So, how many of you actually, can you raise hands, all the students in the room here? At least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then they cannot, right? How many? There are many people on the online, right? Yeah. So I just want to know, like, imagine 30 years back, 34 years back now. I was somebody, came from a small town, went to a government school, studied Telugu medium until 12th grade, and had big, it was, I think those of us who studied in my generation would know, is getting to that dream engineering college was something, miraculous achievement, okay, from this small town, okay. But I went to Usmania University by, I would say, a stroke of luck. I made it in a margin. Of course, I used a proud beneficiary of reservation system. And then I thought I'll just stop there. My vision thinking was, hey, we made a big achievement. Let's get out of here, get a government job, and that's it. You're done for your, life. Literally, that was my expectation. And, it took a long time to really comprehend what is possible, what is my potential, and all that. In that, I have to, some of you recently attended my daughter's graduation party. I introduced one gentleman. He's literally, but for one individual who made me realize my potential and, started encouraging me to try for higher things, I wouldn't have been today where I am today. So I'm thankful to this individual. He's a dear friend and, my lifelong this thing. But what I want to tell you is, he was my mentor. In all aspects, he was my mentor. But for that mentor, I wouldn't be here today where I am today. Because he helped me, the biggest obstacle in anybody's, all the, human beings, there is a saying, the talent is distributed equally, geographically. You cut across any sections of human beings in whatever divisions you want to say. The talent and, the intelligence, if you call it, is distributed equally, but opportunities are not. That is the challenge. So, especially from our communities, those who are struggling to, get a basic education, basic human, living conditions, it is, it's next to impossible to even get that basic degree, go to that next step, right? So some of these, you're working through hardships, but the biggest thing they lack is the environment that they are in. They cannot think bigger. They cannot think what is their potential, what is their capable of achieving. So somebody can remove that mental block from your brain. That's all you need for any individual. And I was so fortunate I could, somebody could do that for me when I was in engineering, okay? Otherwise, I wouldn't have traveled this far. I mean, I think Sanjay ji has given a good introduction. I traveled from a small town in a government school where it rained, there was no school. I had to go to 3 high schools. There are 4 high schools in the town, all government schools, Telugu medium, when I studied. And my father wanted me to, I did advanced math. We had 2 levels of math. There was no teacher in these schools. So I went to 3 schools for advanced maths. Okay. So that's the type of environment I grew up. And today, you're all sitting at MIT. This is my alma mater. I never ever, my wildest dreams, I ever thought I will one day study at MIT. So anyway, so the thing I want to really emphasize is, I think the mentoring and removing in that mental block. I think all the students who already came here, my simple message to you is, you crossed already. I mean, I wouldn't have told you, if you're struggling to pass an exam and all that. I think by virtue of you coming to US to get an admission, get through all this GRE, TOEFL, and get through your academics, you've come to a stage, okay? You have proven yourself, and this is the country. I can tell you another thing. I'm so blessed and honored and to live in this country. I still hold my Indian passport, but I have a great respect for this country. This country made a huge difference in giving me an opportunity, and you will be surprised. Throughout my engineering, there was not one day I stood up and asked a question to teacher because I couldn't speak good English. Okay, today I can speak in international forums, in the big conferences, and that transformation happened in US actually. Okay, in US. This is, I mean, with all its shortcomings, everybody has still one of the best countries to live, and especially for people like us who come for a very underprivileged, with a lot of we've been branded as so and so, not meritorious, all this nonsense. This is the country. You can break all those. I mean, there are subtle differences, but relative to where we come from, this is like heaven. Tell me, the opportunities are there. It is very, very democratic country, and the sky is the limit. Okay, so my message to you is, 3 things you have to do. You aim very high. Okay, you have to dream very big. Hey, after all, it's a dream, right? Why should we have to koshish kyun karna hai isme? Right? You have to dream very high. Then you have to dream to become a Bill Gates, Obama, Nobel laureate. Okay, Martin Luther King, Ambedkar. We need to have Ambedkars, more Ambedkars. Ambedkar is a great person, but hey, there were great people before him. There will be great people after him, and one of you could become that. That's how you should think. Okay, there was Pule before, there were Buddha, or there were but Ambedkar was there, and one of you could become somebody like that. You should think about becoming a Bill Gates. Why not? Why not? Right? If I could come and the guy who couldn't even speak one word of English sentence when I entered college. Okay, that was I couldn't speak one sentence without grammatical error. Okay, I mean, I still struggle with English. That's I know that, but I can speak. So you should aim very high. And 2 thing is, just dreaming is not good enough, right? You have to put your action plan. You have to work very hard. Work very hard. In that working hard, you have to be a little bit, I mean, everybody putting hours, putting, time into what your aim is. But one quality I would always, while working hard, you should have a perseverance. So if you have one, there's a goals, you have a bigger goal, but there's an immediate goal. There's a short goal. Next step you have to go. You have to work so hard and persevere on that goal to go to that next level, because the journey you achieve at the end is again a small steps of progress. Every time you make 1 step at a time, and when you want to go to that next step, you have to persevere. You have to persevere until you achieve that, and you will achieve it. One day or the other, it will take some time. You will have setback, but you have to persevere to go there. And then the last thing, this is what I think. I wish more and more people could do it, but you all have to give back to society. Okay, this is something our communities, 90% of them still without opportunity. Okay, and some of them are really living in a subhuman conditions, and you all represent the cream of that communities. Okay, and there's a huge burden, responsibility to give back and contribute to make a difference. Okay, with that, I want to, I'll be talking, but not lengthy discussion. I want to introduce the next speaker in the program. That is, most of you know, it's Vinaya Kobragade. So I'll read her introduction. Vinaya Kobragade is a New York-based executive banker. She currently serves as the managing director in risk management division at MUFG's Milan. Mitsubishi, okay, in New York. She has been serving in banking and capital markets industry in various capacities for several years. She worked with multinational firms at senior positions. Some of her previous appointments were Citigroup, HSSB, Nomura, and Ernst & Young. She has been engaged in various social welfare activities for the education and overall upliftment of socially disadvantaged communities. I heard. Sorry. She has been engaged. Okay, I had various social activities for the education and overall upliftment of socially disadvantaged communities. She continues to motivate students to excel in their field of interest. She orchestrated the concessional training program for the higher studies entrance exams such as GRE, GMAT, CAD, etc. Dr. Ambedkar International Mission is in partnership with IMS, a premier coaching institute in India, and also closely worked on Bharti residential training program for GRE TOEFL preparation in Nagpur. Along with many like-minded friends, she established the Global Empowerment Network that undertakes various initiatives related to education. As a leading member of our community, she loves to connect with people and continues to guide and assist them. Her passion remains to learn and teach Buddha's Dharma. She was born and raised in Nagpur. She completed her BE in Computer Science from VRCE Nagpur and MBA from IIM Calcutta. Her hobbies include sketching, writing, playing golf, table tennis, and snorkeling. I didn't know you play golf. Okay, let's welcome Vinaya for the
presentation on, and do we have a presentation? Can we put up on the projector?
Yeah.
So that might be copy. That's good. That's good.
So this is telecast. Even this here, this one.
Oh, that one.
Live, YouTube live. Both 2 places here, this one.
Thanks, Venkat, and good morning and Jai Bhim. Namo Buddhaya to everybody. Welcome to this third seminar of our student seminar that we started 3 years ago. And I welcome you all, including our India students and students who are joining from UK, Canada, Australia, and some parts of Europe. So today I'm just going to talk about our journey together that we started 3 years ago. Some of you will remember that we had our first seminar in Columbia, in New York. And that was the one we orchestrated for our fall students of 2016, where we invited, and there were almost 8 students then who joined. And we took them around the entire day program, telling them about what are the cultural challenges here, being in the US. And the entire program long for the entire day. Last year, we had the seminar in New Jersey, where not only our students who participated in room, in classroom, but also we had over 150 students joining in across the world. And this year, the most ambitious one, we are at MIT. And thanks to Venkat and team and Sanjay for allowing us to host this program. Yogesh, of course.
Yeah.
For allowing us to host this program here this year.
Yeah.
And the one beauty of this program this year is that not only our students are joining from all across the world, but we have our mentor presentations that are coming from different countries. And you'll be listening to them throughout the day. So it's very, very heartening, guys, to be here. And I'm just going to walk you through that what we are, where we started, where we are today, and what we look forward to. Okay. So if we have to state our mission in a very simple language, as Venkat said, yes, we are striving for paying back to society. So in simple, the mission is to be a socially responsible global empower network, where the mission remains to empower our deprived communities through educational guidance and advocacies by providing them a global platform. Because as Venkat was saying in his speech, most of us lack awareness. It's not that we don't want to do something, but a lot of times our students, especially from humble backgrounds, they don't know where to reach out to. So our platform we are building a platform which allows them to connect to people across the globe and see what's going on overseas, right? Because The moment you get out of your comfort zone, the moment you get out of your town, you get exposed to varieties of challenges and opportunities. And we want our students to be availing of these opportunities and challenges. So what are our core values? What are our foundational principles that we all strive to be? So the first one is, as I said already, the socially responsible. So we are all part of the socially responsible community, and we continue to make sure that we engage into all this kind of endeavors which will make us socially responsible and help our community grow further. Integrity. Integrity is something that is very, very dear to our hearts. We should have the uncompromising nature of integrity. Even if that is the definition of success, that we don't achieve the success, we cannot compromise on integrity. Commitment is active involvement. There are going to be individual challenges, there are going to be individual problems, but as far as our mission is considered, as far as our goal is considered, we look at a bigger picture and make sure that our commitment remains. So whatever we are assigned with, we make sure that despite challenges, we take them through. Respect. Each one of us bring unique strength. Not necessarily everybody is good at everything, but all of us are good in something. And that's what we bring out. And we respect each other for that. Everything right from doing the operational thing to the strategic thing, to the tactical thing. We need two partnerships. We need people, and all of us bring those unique strengths. So we respect each other for that. Drive by leading example. Instead of just having the discussions, we expect people to demonstrate them, exude them by examples, by taking on the challenges, by taking on the responsibilities, and making sure taking them to completion. Excellence, as Venkat says, strive for the highest aim. Strive to excel in whatever field you are. You could be in medicine, you could be in law, you could be in engineering, you could be in a business. Strive for the biggest aim. Strive to excel in whatever you do. Collaboration. Collaboration, where we call that the sum of our energies is much bigger than the individual energies. Because all those gaps that we see that we couldn't bridge, because if we continue to contribute individually, that's where the entire collaboration comes into picture. And partnership. And critical thinking. These are the days where you have to critically think that, can we do something out of the box? Do we have to just continue to do those, so-called stereotype professions? When I was growing up, we were told that you have to either go for engineering or medicine. There was no other option. Today I see people doing law, people doing those are the places we want to be. We want to be entering into all those fields and explore and excel in those. Thanks. So with those fundamental values, what we have achieved, what are our accomplishments? This slide shows some of our accomplishments. Most of you are aware that we conduct weekly calls for our students, and these are broadcasted so that people can join online. So I'm going to give some shout outs guide here. So a big shout out to Jayashree, Rajesh, and Kapil for consistently maintaining these, organizing these calls, taking the questions, having those interactions with students. Of course, we have also conducted many mentors motivational talks. So we invited, mentors from various fields to share their experiences, because those are the journeys, those stories, those matter, right? Those are the lot of teaching values which imbibe a lot of things as to how to overcome challenges. So we have Rajiv and Kapil have been again, of course, Swaroop and Anup, you guys are also there, answering all the questions with regards to how to take GRE, how to take TOEFL, how to prepare for those competitive exams, so on and so forth. The next very unique thing that we did last year, and that was a shout out to Rama K from California and Sandeep Chauhan. They organized the training on some of the cutting edge technologies like big data and machine learning and SAS and R. And they actually offered the online hands-on training where they used to conduct 2 hours for almost 18 to 16 weekends. on Saturdays from 9 to 12 in the evening, where students can join in, and they used to take them along on the hands-on training, actually getting into the development of SAS code and R code, giving them the, preparing them for not just, very high-level training, but also the, hands-on where they can easily pick up and get into the corporate world. So big shout out to Rama K and Sandeep for organizing that. Then last year, we also collaborated with our India partners, and we decided that we realized that all the reservations are given for our students as well as faculty in say, undergrad and master studies. Reservations are not implemented in the fellowship programs or the PhD doctoral programs. And this is happening in most of the elite, so-called elite institutions like IIMs, IITs, and some of us came together, and mostly these were the IITs and IIM alumni, where we thought that we had to address this problem. Because unless and until our people get into and occupy the spaces, these elite spaces of academics in faculty, we are not going to, our students are not going to excel there because they will continue to face the challenges. We took on that advocacy, and last year we partnered with Professor Deepak Malgan from IIM Bangalore. He was very, very supportive, and he and his team ensured that reservations in FPM program at IIMB was implemented last year. That was the first time due to our advocacy it happened. But in parallel, we found that IIM Ahmedabad, which is so-called the topmost elite institute for business education, they were not implementing. So some of our friends like Anil Wagde, Arun Khobragade, Suraj Engde, who is with us here, they went and met the director of IIM Ahmedabad. They had a very good conversation with him, where they made him speechless. Beyond certain point, he could not give the rationale as to why he's not implementing, although he was adamant that he will not implement. So we went ahead and filed a court case against IIM Ahmedabad. As most of you are aware that in this administration, not much can be expected. So our court case is still going on. We have not been invited yet to present ourselves in the court, but we continue to fight. And as we speak, some of our friends, Dheeraj Singh and Anil and Arun, they are planning to meet starting Monday, planning to meet other institutes like IIM Calcutta, IIT Kanpur, and these delegations will be going and meeting the professors. We are seeing a very encouraging response from our professors at these institutes. So let's hope that, unless and until we ask for our rights, guys, nobody is going to give us. So that's what we've learned. And especially, it hurts them when we try to occupy the elite places. If we are mediocres, it doesn't matter, right? And they want somebody to do the mediocre work. But if you want to occupy those excellent and, elite places, that's where it hurts them. And we want to make sure that some of us are taking on those challenges as well. So big shout out to the entire, alumni from IIMs and IITs for that, guys. The next one I wanted to touch upon was India for Diversity. So when we started on this advocacy for reservations in so-called Institute of Eminence these days, you must have heard in the newspaper that some of our institutes have been declared as Institute of Eminence. That means that they have to maintain their so-called quality and merit, and hence they cannot implement reservations. So we wanted to take on the issue of diversity, what it means to have the diverse experience and inclusivity in institutes like academic institutes, or most of you are aware in corporate world, it's very common these days to have the diversity and inclusion implemented, because then you get to address various customer needs, and you need to get those experiences and grow. Similarly, it is very important, and we made that case in India, that diversity and inclusion is equally important. Again, we had our team of people who kind of worked on getting the website up to date. Shashank, Swaroop, they did a lot of operational work. Suraj, in a very short span of time, decided that he's going to make an India-wide tour, and he visited almost 16 to 18 different cities. in the span of 25 days. And I know that he almost had lost his voice at the end of that tour, talking and making presentations at different locations. But that was a very good opportunity where we could make an impact on our academia back in India, as well as he got an opportunity to meet students one-on-one and understand their challenges. And from there on, we decided to build an India-wide network of students, and the network continues to grow. So big shout out to you, Suraj, for that. Career counseling, as most of you are aware, that once our students come here, there are challenges in terms of finding the internship, in terms of finding the jobs. We want to make sure that some of our mentors are exclusively dedicated for that. And Shashank, you've been doing, Shashank doesn't tell much about his success stories, but some of us are aware that how many students he have helped get the opportunities and their careers are established. And then, of course, advocacy for scholarship. Durgesh and all of our students are fighting back in India. Durgesh is here now, studying in Michigan. And there were Bharti and IMS programs. These are our old erstwhile programs, where our old mentor, Pankaj Meshram, Hemant Sutedala, is doing a Bharti program in Nagpur this year as well. So these continue to be our dedicated mentors to join us. So next slide, and I'm finishing in 1 minute. Just wait. So let's look at our slide. We started very small. We started in the US, focusing mostly on the US students. But now we are in different countries. We are in Australia, as you can see it on the slide. Australia, UK, Europe, of course, various parts of US. We have mentors: California, Atlanta, Michigan, and also Colorado. And also some parts we are trying to reach out to, even now our Japan friends and Singapore friends. So with that, I just want to conclude my few words here, and I encourage you all to be participative in this seminar. Ask as many questions as possible. To online students also, please post your questions, and we'll try to take it as much as possible. So with that, thank you so much, guys, and for being with us, and we'll continue to embark upon our journey. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Vinaya. That was, I think, a lot of work for a number of people, and when she started and getting traction. And I think the most important thing is the impact, right? Just imagine, making sure a elite institution like I am implementing a reservation policy. How many, people will be benefited? But these people are not ordinary people. These are people who would be leaders in their field. Tomorrow they'll be doing, become faculty, they'll become leaders in the industry. And these are the type of people that need that little push. And so the impact is very huge, especially at that level. So I really admire for all the work Vinaya and the team is doing. So moving on, I think the next agenda item is the introduction of the students. We have 30 minutes. How are we doing the remote? Are they able to talk from remote areas? No. What I'm saying is we can do, but how are we doing
We
with the
will
remote?
introduce them. We have the details.
You will. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't I request all the students to come here?
Yeah.
I think please come here and tell a few words about where you are from. Anything you want people to know about you. Just don't say I'm this and that. You need to know. This is the test for you. Come on over, all of you. Yeah.
Hobbies and contacts.
Oh.
You can tell
Yeah. Basically, just tell where you are from, anything, and then where you studied from and where you are right now. Come here, all of you, come here, and then just tell anything interesting about you. If you have some good talent, fun factors, you can, just introduce yourself as a person, right? Okay, so you want to start? So you didn't implement the dress code properly. Yeah.
I'm sure they don't have money to buy this.
Not suit, just Okay, you want to go ahead? Yeah.
My name is Ashish Jambulkar. I came from Nagpur. I studied my Bachelor's of Engineering in Information Technology from YCC Nagpur. And I worked for 4 years in IT industry. And then I recently joined NYU for my Master's in Computer Engineering.
Okay, any talents? You play games, draw, dance, or anything special about you? Yeah, quickly.
I try to play guitar.
Guitar, okay, that's good. Yeah.
guitar.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's wonderful to know.
And I was a lecturer at mathematics lecturer at Bharti
Ah, okay,
for
wonderful,
GRE program
excellent.
and back in 2015.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thanks. Let's give him a- Yeah, Harsha.
Jai Bhim, everyone.
Harshad, come closer.
Jai Bhim, everyone. Good morning. My name is Harshad Chandragade, and I'm from Nagpur. I've completed my Bachelor's of Engineering from NIT Nagpur in Computer Science, and I'm accepted as a graduate student at Boston University for Masters in Computer Science. And when I'm not working, I like to read about astronomy and cosmology.
Wow,
Thank you.
that's good. Rahul.
Good morning and Jai Bhim, everyone. My name is Rahul Salve. I came from Mumbai to study Masters in Engineering Management from Northeastern University, Boston. I'm a BE in Automobile Engineering, and I have a work experience in technical writing for about 24 months. Years. And apart from studies, I like to travel places, and make new friends.
Wonderful. Technical writing, what kind of technical writing did you do?
I was working in L&T, Larsen and Toubro,
Okay.
Defense.
Excellent.
I was
Defense.
entitled to do technical writing for mechanical components, like mechanical systems, radar and missile launcher.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Jai Bhim, everyone. My name is Vinaya. I'm from Nagpur. I have done my engineering from Nagpur University, mechanical field. Currently, I'm doing Masters of Science in Energy Engineering at UMass Lowell. And especially while I was not, I do not. Especially my hobby is to do internet surfing and research about cosmology and other fields like astrophysics.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Hello and Jai Bhim, everyone. My name is Shubham Bankar. I'm from Nagpur. I've done a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. Currently, I'm a grad student at UMass Lowell in energy engineering, and I have a huge interest in renewable energy field. And apart from this, I like to go trekking or for swimming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai Bhim, I'm Dada Sahib. I have done my master's in social work from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. After that, I have worked for 10 years especially for Dalit women rights and especially health rights in India and Bihar, especially Bihar. Apart from that, I'm here for my PhD in UMass. I'm doing my PhD in School of Global Inclusion and Social Development. My topic of my research is inequity in accessing health services by Dalit women. It's actually it crosses health rights, gender and caste in India. So I'll be pursuing my PhD in that. Apart from doing my PhD here, I'm interested in going for kayaking around. And to cut it short, I'm a good sportsman.
Actually, you're a dancer, right?
I'm still proclaimed good dancer. And apart from this, my the biggest identity here is I'm husband of Jasprit.
That's good. Okay, I think these are all the people here in present in this room, and so Vinaya, who is introducing. Do you have anything project their pictures or anything? No, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we have few online students.
Yeah.
And I will just introduce about themselves.
Yeah.
Shakya Mungate, he's in Boston. His prior education BTech. He has 3 years work experience in business intelligence, and now he's pursuing MSc in analytics in Northeastern University. And hobbies, he's guitarist. He writes song, and he holds a black belt in karate.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, good talent. Let's give him a.
Then we have a couple of students from UK. Pratima Padan, she is in Nottingham, UK. She is doing MSc in Economics and Development Economics. And the next is
Provided by freeconferencecall.com. Please announce yourself.
Next we have Pulkit Goderao. He is in London, and he's doing quite heavy duty. He's doing MSc in Quantum Field and Fundamental Forces. That's too in Imperial College London.
Wow.
And that's a very good college. Next, we have Supriya Pedamkar. She's in Salford, UK. She's doing Masters in Environmental Health and Safety at University of Salford. Then we have Samir Chincholikar. He's in Chicago. Previously, he did MBA, and then he worked for 2 years in Yes Bank. And now he is pursuing MS in Financial Engineering in University of Urbana-Champaign, and he loves football.
Good. Let's give them.
Next is Roshni Bulkunde. She is in Nashville. She has done BTech and now pursuing MSc in Economics from Vanderbilt University in US. Next is Shangharsh Aglave. He is in Atlanta. He has done BTech. Previously, he has 3 years work experience and now pursuing MS in Computer Science from Georgia Institute of Technology. And another guy from US, he's Purvesh Dongre. He is in Virginia, and previously he did MTech, and now he's pursuing PhD in Virginia Tech. There is one girl from Toronto, Chandani Vadamna. Previously, she has done MPhil, and now she is pursuing PhD in Social Science and Technology, York University, and she is one of our mentor, and she joins call regularly. Then we have a few 2017 students who are online. Prashik Gajbie, he is in Texas College Station. He's studying MA in Economics, and he's a regular mentor. He's
here, right?
No, Prashik Gajbie. And he's a very good mentor, and he joins call regularly and guides students, especially about scholarships.
Wonderful.
Then we have a Durgesh Samarkar. He's in Wisconsin-Madison and pursuing MA in Economics. And again, he is our regular mentor, and he's excellent. Like, he guides everyone. That's something to talk about him. And then we have another guy from UK, Aniket Gavai, and he's pursuing masters from. He has not written, but he's pursuing masters in UK. So these are all the students.
Okay, thank you all, and I think you have a loaded session, and we all will want to see you in a very, someday you have to remember this day when you grow up, and okay, and you should do this to other students. Okay, thank you very much. So, 1 second. I have. He's on it. Okay. Yeah. So the next speaker is Dr. Vaibhav Gaikwad. He will be presenting online. He'll be talking about higher studies and opportunities in Australia. So let me introduce Dr. Vaibhav Gaikwad. Dr. Vaibhav Gaikwad is a new generation network fellow at the University of New South Wales, Sydney. He holds a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Newcastle, Australia, and his research focuses on the development of innovative processes to transform complex waste streams into sustainable value-added products.
Hello? Yeah. 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 Your session. Okay. Your session is start.
Where is he?
So should I start speaking now?
Where is it?
He's asking for 1 minute.
Okay. So let me read. Okay, Dr. Vaibhav Gaikwad is a new generation network fellow at the University of New South Wales, Sydney. He holds a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Newcastle, Australia, and his research focuses on the development of innovative processes to transform complex waste streams into sustainable value-added products such as energy storage materials, 3D printing, filaments, high calorific value fuels, and polymer composites. He also undertakes life cycle assessment studies to quantify the environmental benefits of sustainable manufacturing processes. Dr. Gaikwad has published several papers in reputed international journals and has delivered invited lectures at international conferences. He was awarded the highly competitive and prestigious All NGN Fellowship in 2016. Dr. Gaikwad is an alumni of Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, and is actively engaged in collaborative research with several industries and universities. He is passionate about teaching and supervises honors, masters, and PhD students. So let's welcome Dr. Vaibhav Gaikwad. Okay.
It's 12 a.m. in Australia.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's Australia, correct. It's 12 midnight for Dr. Vaibhav. So we should appreciate him, taking time. Okay.
Good morning and good evening to everyone, whichever time zone you are in. I'm going to be speaking about higher education in Australia and some of the opportunities and application processes that you'll encounter while applying to different universities here. So to begin with, let me give you a basic idea about how the university system works in Australia for mainly postgraduate education. So that's master's and PhD. The top 8 universities in Australia are classified into a group that is called as Group of 8 Universities. So that includes the University of Western Australia, which is in Perth, Monash University, that is in Melbourne, University of Melbourne, UNSW, that's University of New South Wales in Sydney. Right now, I work as a postdoctoral fellow, a new generation network postdoctoral fellow at UNSW. The Australian National University in Canberra, University of Adelaide in Adelaide, of course, the University of Queensland, located in Brisbane, and the University of Sydney. So these are the top 8 universities that you should ideally aspire to get accepted in a postgraduate course, so either a PhD or a master's by research. If you want to do a master's by coursework, then the opportunities for scholarship are very limited. It is usually the master's and PhD by research that are funded through scholarships. So some of the other universities in Australia that you can also apply to and are UTS, that's University of Technology Sydney, Queensland University of Technology, that's different from University of Queensland, both of them located in Brisbane, Wollongong, Deakin, Swinburne, University of Newcastle, that's where I did my PhD from, RMIT, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology in Melbourne, and Curtin in Perth. There are several others, but I just mentioned a few of them. There are various scholarship schemes that you can apply to. The 2 main schemes that are funded by the universities. So all the universities that I spoke about in the previous slides will have a version of these scholarships. So the first one, the most popular and the common one, is the International Postgraduate Scholarships. These are highly competitive. They are funded directly through the university, so they will pay you a stipend amounting to approximately 27,000 Australian dollars per annum. and they will subsidize your tuition fee. So they will cover 100% of your tuition fee. The other scholarship is the tuition fee scholarship. Although the name suggests that it only covers tuition fee, it also covers your stipend. In this case, your stipend will be paid by your supervisor. So you have to apply, your supervisor has to go into a contract with the university saying that he or she will fund you for the 3 to 3.5 years of PhD or 2 years of masters in Australia. That stipend will come from some of the projects that he or she is funded from. These are the two main types of scholarships in Australia. The other, some of the other notable scholarships is one that's being currently run through my university. That's the University of New South Wales. Now, this is probably the highest stipend in Australia. So around $40,000 stipend for the PhD scholarship. So there is no master scholarship for this. There's only PhD scholarship in the Scientia scheme. And there's another $10,000, a very generous amount for your training and development. So you can use that money for your conferences, going abroad for exchange programs and things like that. But all of these, more so the IPRS and the Scientia, are very, very competitive. I've given some links that you can see on the right-hand side of the slide. So each one of them is for different universities. So the group of 8 universities, you can click on those links and have a go around at the scholarships that are more suitable for you. Also, these scholarships are available for almost all fields, so not just engineering or medical, also economics, law, and other fields. So do have a look at these scholarships. Also, almost all universities in Australia will offer the 2 IPRS and the tuition fee scholarships. As far as the Australian government is concerned, there are again 2 important schemes. One of them is currently accepting applications. So the first one, the Australian Endeavour Leadership Program, they are accepting applications for it right now. I think the deadline is in November sometime, but you can apply for this. It's open to all international applicants, and it is considered to be a very prestigious scholarship. So like IPRS, like Scientia, it's a very, very prestigious scholarship, and it will cover your tuition fees. So if you're doing a master's, it will cover your tuition fees for 2 years. And if you're doing a PhD, then it will cover your tuition fee for 3 to 3.5 years. And on top of that, you will be paid a stipend of around 30,000 Australian dollars to support your living expenses. So that's one of the programs which the Australian government offers. And the other one is a research training program. So this is a lot of universities have combined their IPRS schemes with the RTP. So you just have to confirm with the university that you are applying to make sure they also accept applications through the RTP. Again, both schemes are open to international applicants, so you can just have a look at the links that I've given here and check if you want to apply in any of those schemes. General procedure. So as I said, I would personally recommend you to apply for master's or PhD by research. The only reason for that is that you have a higher chance of getting scholarships for these programs through research. So and masters, the likelihood of getting masters funded is higher in Australia compared to US programs. So you can actually try if you want to complete a course in a shorter period of time. You don't want to go all the way to a PhD. Then masters by research is the way to go, and you do have a good chance to get funded or to get a scholarship for these programs as compared to the states. The application procedure for these sort of programs for masters and PhD through research is essentially you will find a supervisor or in a university, or you choose go the other way around, you find, no, I want to go to this university and then I'll look for supervisors. My suggestion to you would be to give the first preference to a supervisor. So if you think that the supervisor, he or she is an expert in the field, and you know that they have mentored students properly, you email them first. The university, you can keep that secondary. And the thing is, you email him or her, give you a brief introduction, send your resume or a CV, no more than 3 pages, and don't put an impact statement or something on the top. It doesn't usually, that doesn't matter while you're applying to universities here. Send a straightforward CV, no more than 3 pages. Try to find a common subject that you and your supervisor can agree on. And then if they say that, yes, I'm interested to get you on board, let us put a proposal together, then you will follow the university guidelines to whichever university you're applying to. Just follow those guidelines. For example, in UNSW, University of New South Wales in Sydney, where I work, we only need a 1-page proposal. So that's in addition to your CV and everything, but the proposal has to be only 1 page. So you don't need to write a big essay or things like that for getting admitted to a university here. English language proficiency you can demonstrate by either IELTS, PTE, or TOEFL. All 3 are accepted. IELTS and PTE being the most popular ones. The requirements, the marking requirements for these tests vary as per the universities. Usually for IELTS, they'll ask around a band of 6.5 in each of your, so that's reading, writing, listening, and speaking categories. So each one of those categories you need to score more than 6.5, but it depends. It varies on the universities that you apply to. So as I said earlier, that IPRS and ScienceTR are immensely competitive scholarships, and the trend right now is that you should at least have bare minimum 1 paper accepted or published in a journal of a good repute. So if you're doing masters or PhD by research, you have to have at least 1 paper in your undergraduate degree, no matter which field you come from, in a good reputed journal. So it can also be an Indian journal, but in an international journal, the reputation is of course more. So without a paper, it is very difficult for a supervisor or a professor to consider your application. We generally get students who have at least 2 papers, and even they find it tough at times to get through the application process. But your undergraduate marks also count for a lot. Bare minimum, you need to have a first class. So that is minimum for applications over here. Transcripts are required for applying. However, unlike United States, there is no GRE required. So even if you're going for an MBA, there's no GMAT, except I think University of Melbourne does require GMAT, but most of the other Australian universities do not require a GMAT for an MBA or GRE for a PhD or masters. So for the main criteria for a PhD or masters through research is that your undergraduate profile should be very good. You should have at least 1 or 2 papers published in international journals. One of the good things about Australian PhDs or masters is, if once you get enrolled in that and you complete your PhD within the stipulated time, you will have the opportunity to apply for what is called as a temporary graduate visa, subclass 485. Now this visa allows you to stay in Australia depending on what type of degree you have done. Depending on that, you will be allowed to stay for either 1.5 to 4 years. So it gives you full rights to work over here. So you can work whatever the full hours per week are. Of course, finding a job and everything is upon you. But the visa does give an opportunity to stay in Australia and apply for another job if that is what you wish to do. Also, it's the application procedure for it is also straightforward. The forms are pretty straightforward. So the chances of that visa getting rejected so far are low. But the rules keep on changing. So I've given a link over there that can take you to that subclass of visa in case you want any extra information about that. And one of the other things is, so compared to United States, the opportunities for the Australian PhD or masters is more focused on the academia. That's just from my personal experience. Getting a job in the industry, it's not impossible, but it is challenging. The first preference or the most likely place that you will end up getting a job is the universities or the academia sector. To get a job in the industry is a little bit challenging. So you will have to have a good network and make your contacts throughout your degree. And that's just the difference between the Australian higher education and United States higher education is the industrial sector. So you have more opportunities in the States to work in an industry as opposed to Australia. The most candidates do prefer to go into academia rather than industry. So that's just something to think about. In case you guys need any more information, you can search me up on LinkedIn. My name is Vaibhav Gaikwad, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions at a later time. So thank you very much, and wish you all the best. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Vaibhav, and that's very, very helpful information. Yeah, that's one important thing you have to recognize is a lot of people were coming to United States, right? But Australia also has, I know a number of, people who went to Australia that also offers a very good environment and a lot of good opportunity. And I think given some restrictions now you're facing in US, I think those who are planning for next, those who are in India trying to apply, I think they should also look at Australia very seriously. There's a lot of potential there. Okay. So next speaker, we have our dear friend, Dr. Ambikar Shabazz. I think most of our Boston study group is a very dear friend and partner in our struggle here. And we had the distinction of hosting Dr. Ambedkar Unfinished Legacy of Ambedkar Conference at UMass Amherst last year. And Dr. Ambedkar was one of the key, enabler for that. I think let's all give him a big applause. UMass Amherst is one of the very large university, public university, and having this conference, they've done a tremendous job of attracting a lot of good scholars from all over the world, and also they accepted Baba Sahib bust. Thank you very much, Dr. So just to introduce in a professional way, Professor of Dr. Shabazz is Professor of History and African Studies in the W.E.B. Du Bois Department of Afro-American Studies since 2007. Shabazz served as the department's 7th chair from 2007 to 2012, and from 2013 to 2016, he was the faculty advisor to the Chancellor for Diversity and Excellence. And since 2016, he has acted as the department's chair for an interim term. He continues to teach in the department with an emphasis on the political economy of social and cultural movements, education and public policy. His book, Advancing Democracy, African Americans in the Struggle for Access and Equity in Higher Education in Texas, was the winner of the T.R. Fehrenbach Book Award and other scholarly recognition. This has actually a direct relation with some of the struggles we go through to access education, and there's no better speaker than Dr. Shabazz to enlighten us about the struggle that African Americans go through in this country. The 40 Acres documents, a volume he co-edited with Imari Obadel and Joshnita Scott Obadel, and for which he wrote the introduction, was one of the earliest scholarly works in the modern movement for reparations for slavery and the racial oppression of people of African descent in North America. Shabazz has been a Fulbright a senior specialist and has done work in Brazil, Ghana, Japan, Cuba, and other countries. So with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Shahbaz. What is that?
Okay to see. Okay, go.
Yeah, just everybody, right now we have a lot of people logged in from around the world, but the two places there are a big group of people in Nagpur as well as Nasik, and we want to send a big hello to all of you in those two locations. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Everyone
Hello.
here, as well as online in various places in the world. It is my pleasure and to give a few thoughts today on some of the challenges in institutions of higher education in the United States. W.E.B. Du Bois, a native son of this state of Massachusetts, where we are right now, once said at the dawn of the 20th century that the problem of this century is the problem of the color line, the relation of the darker to the lighter races of men in Asia and Africa, in America, and the islands of the sea. We have been more than a century now from that profound declaration. And of course, as we reflect on what things were like at that time, at the dawn of the 20th, with most of the world under colonization of just a handful of countries in Europe, that is part of that colonial domination. There were very pernicious systems of oppression and exploitation that it took massive struggles and world wars and massive people's campaigns to undo those systems of oppression to the extent that we were able to undo them in the 20th century. But here, well into the 21st century now, we don't have those same experiences going on, but we have different ones. And indeed, we must be very clear to identify the problems that confront us in the 21st century. We can have a wider ranging conversation about those problems, but I want to focus in terms of institutions of higher education in the United States. First of all, if you would look at one source on this, a very systematic study was done by publication called Forbes that identified several critical problems in higher education, issues and challenges, and as well as other studies that look at this. One of the first and foremost is the rising cost of a university education. When I was in college as an undergraduate some 40 years ago, I escaped after with my 4-year degree in economics about $2,000 in debt. But truth be told, I had more than that in the bank in savings that I had been able to kind of scrape and put together. But I did take a few loans, and the loans were there. And so as soon as they started pestering me about repaying the loans, I just paid it off in one lump sum. So effectively, I graduated with a 4-year degree debt-free. That is not the case for most students today. The possibilities of graduating from with a baccalaureate degree debt-free. The rising cost of universities has led, in fact, to a decline in aggregate enrollments in colleges, and as well the overall support for higher education in American society is really beginning to wane. It's not as robust as it once was. Secondly, these studies have found that the increasing cost of student financial aid, which begins to chase the ever-escalating tuition increases, and the tuition increases then in turn look at the rate of inflation and they want to raise them more every year. And so it continues in a very vicious spiral, the overall student debt crisis in this country, which is in the trillions of dollars. Thirdly, and by the way, this spiral of inflation, inflationary expectations, tuition prices, financial aid increases, is indeed also driving an overall reduction in the diversity in our colleges and universities. And we can speak a little more on that, but let me get through the list. Also, in the wake of these issues of this expensiveness, cheap vocational competence programs have emerged that have begun to threaten the whole enterprise of higher education. If industries will now hire someone who's taken a little competency course of 1 year duration or even shorter in some cases, that it's enough to make them feel, okay, this person can do that job. I don't have to hire a 4-year degree, someone with a 4-year degree or even an advanced degree. I know they're competent in what I need. That's sufficient. So these have begun to emerge. Also, the core fundamental role of colleges, as quote in the Forbes study, an oasis where widely divergent ideas are discussed and peacefully argued, is increasingly under attack, end quote. We find, in fact, our colleges and universities are oftentimes characterized by a lot of internal strife, by a degree of intolerance towards different positions on the very same campus. And this has stood in somewhat contrast to previous years of how the role and the thinking about institutions of higher ed. Financial support of higher education long-term has also, we see a long-term trend of a decline in the financial support of higher ed. Particularly, I am at the University of Massachusetts. This was an institution set up as a land grant institution. It was a public institution set up by the state of Massachusetts, or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that took funds from the federal government under the Morrill Act with a specific charge of serving all the people, of being an institution to serve the needs of all kinds of people from all walks of life in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Well, increasingly that state aid, which in my own lifetime in Massachusetts was sometimes more than 2/3 of the budget of the campus was paid by the state. Now we're less than 25%. We're less than 25% aid directly from the state of Massachusetts, even though we are the flagship campus of the state. So these are some of the trends we're seeing that are very troubling. Also, the value of a degree, the value of degrees as evidence of knowledge, intelligence, discipline, ambition, and integrity. That status and that value of degrees in this country, it seems to be going downward. There's a downward trend there. And then finally, the studies have indicated that at large campuses, intercollegiate athletics is scandalously immoral and exploitative. Some of these larger campuses with these programs in football, American football and basketball and in other sports where millions are raked in television contracts. Right now, this is a Saturday, there'll be games televised that millions of dollars are paid for the rights to advertise, to play those games. And advertisers spend many, many millions for the little seconds of time for commercials. Meanwhile, the student athletes in those very programs are absolutely destitute. They can't receive money. That's all violations of these rules that have been concocted. They sometimes find themselves unable to find places to live, unable to eat, not even very good food. It's really a shameful condition, and there have been challenges at Northwestern University and other campuses to this kind of this state of affairs. So that is also another area within many of the studies that have been pointed to in terms of higher ed. I'd like to raise how is this important for students in the Global Empowerment Network. And to add to that, some comparison. So in the case of reservations in India, for example, maybe there is a more, it's very constitutionally and legally set, and there's not the kinds of challenges to it, perhaps. But here in the United States, the equivalent kinds of programs and efforts that that came about in the aftermath of the civil rights movement, Black Power movements, and other social movements in this country, we stand today at a point where the equivalent of reservations, affirmative action, and diversity programs, these are not simply under attack, they are effectively dead. They are effectively dead. You have some college presidents continue to give a little lip service to it here and there, but fundamentally, first of all, the legal underpinnings have been so assailed through a series of court cases going back to the 70s of a case called Bakke, by Alan Bakke in California, all the way up to more recent cases in Texas, Hopwood case in 1996, and the Michigan cases, and Bruder and on up. We have effectively seen that the legal underpinnings, there just hasn't been a final case where the Supreme Court can rule on it and decree it dead for all time by the court's reasoning. And certainly with the this seat on the court by which will give the court a majority of Federalists that is likely to be approved today of Justice Kavanaugh, this will give the court a majority group, a majority block of all Federalist Society judges that have over the last 30 years have a track record of promoting this so-called idea of individual rights, and that any efforts to try to address or to ameliorate conditions of patterns of discrimination that happen against groups in this country, such as African Americans, such as indigenous people, such as other protected classes that have emerged in the law over the last 50 years, that those are now effectively dead. They'll just have to bring the cases up in the next year or two, rule on them, and you will have courts now having settled it as law, and the universities will all cave in on whatever remaining programs they still have. Actually, Hopwood in 1996 led most institutions of higher ed to do away with any forms of race-based anti-discrimination programs. Race-based. Women's, gender-based, still allowed until now. But once this court in its final move with Kavanaugh coming on board, gender-based out the window, other forms out the window. So we are really in times where you must learn, you must understand, even in coming in here, what are some of the debates, what are some of the tensions, and at least be aware of them, if not in your own way, being able to lend your voice, lend your ideas, speak out, put yourselves out there as well to engage in some of these debates. I know as a primarily coming in as a student from that's not your primary goal. Your primary goal is, of course, your degree, but it's important to be aware and to understand these challenges that are going on. Also, not in the Forbes study and not in some of these, but we have to look at some of the interlocking or intersectional, as it's often put, challenges. We also know that the discrimination against women in this country has historically been pervasive. And there were efforts again with title programs coming out of the federal government, Title IX and whatnot, trying to create greater gender equity, gender balance. But again, in the days ahead, we will see great vigilance and great struggles in this society and on our campuses around these issues, and it'll be important to be aware. Also, the question of immigration to this country, who is allowed, and in what numbers are they to be allowed to have visas, to be a part of legal immigration, is now a very explosive, very hot button issue. There are some in the society from the White House on down that has said we need more people here from Norway. We need more people here from Northern European, Aryan countries, and less from the darker parts of the global South, the global of global humanity, or put in more indelicate phrase, and we have to call these words out, shithole countries. We don't want people from shithole countries. So with that kind of thinking, all the way at the top now, in the White House, not just somewhere out of some Ku Klux Klan rally, but in the White House, we have to be very cognizant, we have to be very vigilant, and look at, again, the kinds of ways these may be aligned with global rhetorics and global actions that are taking place that are comparative, and then see where we can build, where we can teach each other, learn from each other, and form solidarities across national lines, across all our networks, because I think it is a common fight. So I don't know what the opportunity may be for some questions and discussions later on, but I'll be here, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Shabazz. I think that's a very, in a short amount of time, you really articulated the challenges that U.S. higher education is facing in terms of giving access to the lowest economic and state of this country, which is in many ways, we can correlate. So one good thing you pointed out very well is the reservation system in India. I mean, there are other forms of that in other countries, but a large country like ours having this constitutionally guaranteed, so it gave us a right, unless our African American brothers struggle. It depends on the whims and thoughts and who is the president and whether he decides to do it or not. But we have a constitutional guarantee. While a government like the BJP is trying to nullify as much as possible wherever it is, but that is a big thing that Dr. Baba Sahib ensured us, and we're all actually beneficiaries of that. I mean, I have the reservation. There's a lot of debate, right? But let me give. It impacts less than 3% of Indian economy. So we should right away reject the total reservation in higher education as well as reservation in government jobs represent less than 3% of the entire Indian economy. Okay, so it is a minuscule. So we need to, the debate on reservation, we should basically reject, outrightly and say we have a bigger share in the mainstream economy. That is what we need to, fight for sometimes. Okay. So anyway, with that thought, I want to, we are taking a break right now for 15 minutes. Yeah. So have some breakfast here, coffee, and then come back. And what time? So 35. So 10:50 will be 10:45. 10 minutes. Okay. It's okay. And the restrooms are on the. We'll go out of the classroom on the left side. Okay. Yeah. And online people, take a break. Okay.
Come back.
Yeah. Come back.
So there is also Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
So just find out. I'll let you know. They're all gathered.
Middle East, Dubai, all those countries we have, but online it is going to be difficult.
But even
Questions.
I'll break them just to quick, even if it takes 2 minutes.
So guys, be ready with the questions, okay? The letter sessions.
Yeah.
Power of
Ask option. Can you put there? We'll be right back. I'll still putting this. The screen you put that there. That will be right back at 9:45.
आता ने केली आहे ना स्क्रीन शेअर केली आहे.
पण त्याचा आवाज काय येत नाही?
हे केलाय का? स्पीक म्हणजे
I can do this one.
त्यांनी का हे नाही केलं ना तिकडं?
कुणी? त्यांनी कोणी?
Unmuted.
त्याचा आवाज येत नाही.
Muted.
हॅलो हॅलो करायला सांग.
नाही मला नाही आता. He's speaking but I'm not getting it. नाही घेतो.
in fact, there was, but now since we have study because
Just to give you an idea, for next year internship,
now it is late
pretty
night,
much
so especially
the
in the
entire process,
that one professor will spoke from
you can
Australia, and it was 12:30 night.
And then with some students approach me naturally.
These are the challenges, but
And
still
then I'm like,
it's
you contact close. So you have to start now. Or internship next summer.
student
You
gather
start
in one place and they are
preparing resume, preparing
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, I think now you can
Okay. So
and write to them. So that they
even if we ask for, I don't know how far it is.
Yes, because it starts now. Because the budgets are allocated.
Okay, perfect. Is voice quality okay? I mean, I'm using headphone. I don't have like a special speakers.
Okay, okay, बोल.
It's okay. It's very good. You are discussing your point.
Yeah, please.
now उसको play. I will tell him to mute.
Last 3 years, I did 4 years in that. I got this opportunity. And this year, my boss realized that I was the one who was getting it. So he gave me the opportunity. So I'm not ready.
Oh, awesome.
So what happens is then
Now
the
you can-
things happen that in the month of December, January, in the month of November itself, we start getting the results. Only from the university.
Definitely let you know.
And in December, January, they make us go
With us.
look at the time.
So this will go.
So how are you doing that ID?
How am I doing?
Yeah, you're just showing, right?
I think I'll sit here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We are not even
Yeah.
some noise or something.
For online people, I'm checking that. Then for
Oh, so where is that?
next online.
But where is that?
No, I'm
Where's the
asking
IFI?
Swaroop or
Oh,
someone.
that's what. Okay. So teaches courses on academic writing and literary analysis. She is the Vice President of the International Association for the Study of Popular Romance and the author of the academic book Making Meaning in Popular Romance Fiction and Epistemology in 2014. She is co-editing a collection of essays for Routledge titled Research Companion to Popular Romance Studies, which includes her own essay on the effect of the materiality of romance novels. She worked for several years as an academic advisor at the University of Minnesota after she earned a PhD in English there, and is very familiar with the logistical and cultural workings of American higher education. She obtained an MA in English Literature from the University of Pune and is originally from Bombay. And let's welcome Dr. Jayashree Kamble.
Good morning, Jai Bhim, to everyone here and in the other parts of the world. Vinaya and I thought about doing something a little bit more interactive than just lecturing at people, which is what people like me do all day anyway. So instead, you just get to take a test. Not ready for that? Everybody hopefully had some coffee? Okay. So what I thought I would do today, especially for the benefit of our students in India who are still thinking about applying to grad school here, and of course also for those of you who are here, is just to give you like a little bit of a sampler on communicating with your professors. Okay, so what I have up here is just a few slides where I'm going to break down one email that you might be sending to a professor and what an ideal format for writing that email might be. Okay, especially if you're trying to get into a program here, that's going to be your first impression, right, of trying to communicate with someone. If you remember what Vaibhav said in his previous slideshow, that you have to reach out sometimes to people, trying to like get them to accept you as a student, right? So it's your first impression. So I thought we'd break down a little bit of what those elements are and how you might write. And this is on my mind because as I'm a professor myself, and I often get emails from my students, and professors that are here might also attest to this. Sometimes there is nothing in the subject line. Sometimes they don't sign off with their name, so you don't even know who the email is from, because many of us are now immersed in the world of texting. Yeah. And so we are more used to doing that, and we assume that the person knows where the communication has come from. Okay, so I wanted to just take a little bit of time to do what is otherwise a very simplistic task for those of us who have been doing this for years. But sometimes as communication styles change, maybe people have to be reminded of them. Okay, so on the first line over there, can everybody see? Yeah. Okay, I've given you a subject line, right? The subject line of the email, and I've given you 4 choices there. Okay, so should you in your subject line put your name if you're writing as a student? Should you say hello or hi or something like that? Should you put the topic that you're going to be talking about in your email? Or maybe the name of a common acquaintance between the professor and you? Or should you leave it blank? Well done. Okay. That's the strongest one. Okay. I often have students who will write their own name in the subject line. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with that, especially if you're a stranger. Okay. If you're a professor like me, in an hour, I might get 20 emails in my inbox. And I care more about if it's from my chair. I care more about whether it's for my current students. I care more if it's like a scholarship that I'm applying to. Right. So if an unknown student's name pops up, I don't care. Right, it'll just like go into the back of my email. Okay, even hello or hi, it doesn't really convey much. Okay, so if you can give us actually a topic that the professor might be interested in, or sort of say I'm writing because we have a common acquaintance, that might be the way to get somebody to even open your email first. Okay, on the other side, there's the opening salutation. Okay, so to start off, would you try dear sir or dear madam or dear sir/madam? A good morning or a good afternoon, a hi or a hello, or dear professor with the last name. A, B, C, or D? C. Sense some disagreement. C is well there. Okay. Poll. Yeah, let's do a poll. A? Okay. What? Okay, Anup says A. B? Or C? Or a D.
D.
Is some
It's
people
like
are
an
raising on
activity.
both the sides.
We have a half and half. We're slightly divided. Okay. I would say D is ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. D is ideal partly because it shows that you actually cared enough to look the person up. Okay. It's not a generic email that you're just sending out like a mass email to anybody. Okay. Nobody likes to feel like they're just part of a herd. Okay. So you've actually taken the time to look the person up, and usually you want to like acknowledge the title of the person, dear Professor so and so. Okay. Or if you know that they have a PhD, then you might write dear Doctor so and so, right? Their last name. Always last name, by the way. Okay. Or you can use a full name, but never just the first name. You know, like in Hindi movies, you say Mr. Vijay. I'm like, what? What's his last name? Like, you don't say Mr. Vijay. What is that? So like try not to make the same error when you're writing. Okay. All right. Next slide. Thank you. All right, so opening paragraph, I've got 4 blanks there, and each of those blanks has some options in them, okay? So we're starting off, and you would say, would you say myself, and then give your student name? Would you say I am, and give your name? Or would you say my name is, and give your name?
C.
Anybody for A? I'm highly surprised because I see this all the time. It's a tick of Indian writing. Okay, we say myself and you give your name. Right? Myself Jayashree, myself Dilip. Right? It's a tick of Indian English. There's nothing wrong with it. There are many Englishes, but one of the things you learn as you move across countries is that everybody has their own tradition of saying certain things. Okay, so nothing wrong with saying myself, but it's going to create a little bit of a confusion in the mind of the person. So you probably want to go with either B or C. Okay, I am so and so. And you have to also remember that American culture is very direct. So you want to get to the point really quick, right? So let's not start with like, I hope you're having a wonderful day and I hope like your life is going great. Like, no. Just get to the point. Okay, so you want to lead with, here's my name. Okay, and then I am blank 2 says doing BE, BSc, BA, BCom degree, or completing a BE, BSc, BA, BCom program. A or B? Anybody B? Vinaya is silent. She's like, I'm not even going to try this one.
A long time ago.
It should be B.
It should be B. It should be B. Okay, I'm completing a program. Okay, rather than saying doing. Okay. All right, blank 3 in, right? I am completing this program in. Would you say the name of your college? So let's say Siddharth College in Mumbai, India. Or would you say Siddharth College, one of the highest ranked colleges in, and then explain whatever field you think your college is the best? What would be a good option?
B.
A or B?
B.
B. Okay. So first of all, like there's not really a point in explaining that the college is in this city and this country, right? Like if the person doesn't know the college, it doesn't matter what city or country it's in, right? It's irrelevant information. What matters is the college good at something, right? And if they don't know that, you want to provide that information up front. You want to make a claim for that. Okay, I'm at this institution and it does this well, right? You're establishing your credentials. Okay. And then finally, I'm interested in, would you say, just repeat the name of the subfield you might be interested in? Would you name a discipline? So for example, social sciences or humanities or something like that, IT. Or would you say a research area within the field? So for example, the potential in machine learning to implement social justice projects.
C.
Why C?
Very specific.
It's very, very specific. It's very, very specific. Okay, so one of the things that marks you as someone who maybe is potentially ready, especially to go to grad school, is some specificity like that. Because it's already cutting you out of the herd of people who only engage with disciplines because somebody told them to, and somebody who's starting to think of the potential of applying that discipline towards creating new knowledge. Okay, so you actually want to have some kind of research question or idea in your mind, or a problem to which you think you might want to search for a solution. Okay, so be very clear in your introduction as to why this person should proceed to read the email further. Okay, otherwise you still identify yourself as a junior in some ways. Okay, not quite ready for grad school yet. Okay, all right, next slide. All right, So we have a body paragraph, and we've got 3 blanks here. So would we say I have earned 86%? Would you say I have earned a 7.5 CGPA? Would you say I have earned a 3.6 GPA? Anybody A? Why not? Why wouldn't you say I have earned 86%?
That is not the US way.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So again, if you put 86%, you're really relying on the person to care enough about you to look up what that means on an equivalency chart. I don't have that time. Okay. If you're a stranger to me, I don't have the time. I'm not going to put the effort in. Okay. So even though that is in fact what your degree is in India, you always have to think about what does the audience understand about any kind of value or gradation or things like that you're offering. So B may be a little bit better, but it might trip the person up because in the US we follow a 4.0 GPA scale. Okay, so looking at a 7.5 is going to confuse the person, and they may think that you are actually making a mistake or you're making something up. Okay, so whichever place you're applying to, and this is for folks online as well who are thinking about applying to other parts of the world, try to get a sense of what would be a good equivalent to explain to them what your work has worth in whatever their system might be. So you might have to do a little bit of digging to figure that out. Thank you. All right, and then if the sentence continues, I have earned 3.6 GPA and worked for 1 year at part-time job, have on-site experience at a company that develops whatever, XYZ, or I have done research but don't have work experience. What would be a good way to finish that blank? If you're trying to explain your past in some ways, other than your studies. Why B?
It's not that subjective depending on what you have done.
Sure, absolutely, right? But if you look at just work for 1 year at part-time job, for one thing, you're sort of limiting their understanding of what you have done in the past, right? You're saying 1 year. It's already feels kind of reductive. And then part-time job, again, it's not really a phrase that, you want to actually throw in there because, you can work a part-time job at a Dunkin' Donuts, right? Like, what does that mean, right? So the second one, have on-site experience, that is already a phrase that sort of shows that you actually have learned how to do something in a place, you understand the functioning of a workplace, and then you're explaining whatever it is that the company has done. So it gets a sense of what experience you acquired from that particular company. It sort of speaks for your resume a little bit. What's wrong with C, do we think?
It's negative.
It's negative. Exactly so. Exactly so. Okay. So don't ever highlight things in a negative fashion. Okay. Even when you have things that you think you're lacking or whatever, you always want to frame it in the best possible light. Okay. And then last one, I have, would you say, published papers on whatever subfield in maybe a journal title? Would you say presented research on, again, your subfield or topic with a conference name and a city? Or C, both, if possible.
C.
Okay, you want to, as much as possible, if you're going up to a higher education program, highlight that kind of research element. Publications, any appearances at academic conferences, and be, again, very, very specific about things you have published and research that you have presented. Okay, it's very valuable. Next slide. All right. If we say, I am very hardworking, humble, and helpful, versus I'm very friendly and jovial, versus I'm eager to learn more and build on my strength, what should we pick?
B. There's no C.
Oh, there's no C apparently. The third. That's not meant to trip anybody up. It's just a typo. If only everybody said C, everybody's awake. That's my check. So the first one, second one, or third one?
Second one.
Second one? Why the third one? Why not the first or the second? What do you think?
It's forward-looking.
Okay, it's forward-looking. That's right. Talks about yourself as someone who's actually maybe going to grow. What's wrong with A and B?
It's a self-assumed
qualities.
Right, you deserve, yes. It's a little bit of self-praise. It's a little bit of self-praise. It's also, in some ways, it's lacking evidence, right? You're describing yourself, but in a way that ideally you shouldn't. Your work should speak for you, right? So if you want to describe yourself, describe it in a way that sort of talks about your desire to be better, okay? And things like humbleness and friendliness and all of this is nonsense, right? You don't need it at this stage. You actually will enact it when hopefully you're actually in those places, okay?
I would say that the first two things is typically a third person will write about the second person.
Yeah.
That, you know, if
Yeah.
somebody is recommending, if I'm recommending you, then
Yeah.
I'll describe you and that
Yeah.
he's very hardworking,
Yeah.
humble Joe,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
you don't talk about yourself in those qualities.
Absolutely. And this is kind of actually something we see in the first drafts of statements of purpose and things that we actually clean out and say, no, you can't be saying this. Like, talk about the work you do and the work you want to do. Stop like describing yourself as if you're in, some ways like this very lovely person. That's not the way to write about it. Okay. I think I'm almost out of time. So the next one, I would like to apply for, we say name of a specific program at a university, name the university, no specific program, just mention the name of the university or a name of a discipline like engineering. What would you say? A, right? So we have a specific program and a specific university. Again, this shows that you've done your research, right? It indicates that you actually have a very specific direction rather than generic letter to generic university or generic discipline, which again sort of shows that you're still in the undergrad phase of mind rather than thinking more specifically. And then lastly, when you're explaining why you're applying there, would you say because it's the best, most highest ranked school? Would you say because the person is amazing and you want to be their humble student? Or would you say your research on with a specific question, project, or initiative, which aligns well with the focus on specific questions, right? So you're kind of getting the hang of where I'm going, right? Like the more specific, the better, right? The more specific, the more articulate you are about things that you've thought about, the fact that you can show that you've done research in that process, that's the most valuable thing. Okay. In Hindi, we have this word called chaplusi. Don't be a chaplus. It is not respected here. Okay. Like all this, like, main aapke pair padunga, like nobody cares. Okay? Like, be very clear about who you are. That's the thing that really matters. Am I out of time? Okay. So I'll just leave the slides up there and maybe point to.
Time too.
Afterwards?
Yeah,
Okay. So for conclusion.
Yeah, just spend some time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we say, please reply to me at your earliest convenience? B, I'm most eagerly looking for your response. Or C, I have attached my resume and I hope to hear from you on how I might successfully enter your program. C. Okay, C is the way to go. You attach something so that you've created initial interest. Hopefully, then you give them the opportunity, if they have time and interest, to then look at your information. Okay, so you attach it in there and ask them for more advice on how you could proceed in order to get into their program. Okay, reply to me at your earliest convenience doesn't tell them anything. Reply to say what, right? You have not put forward an actual request, right? So just reply, ask, please reply to me. I'm looking forward to your response. Again, it's very polite, but it actually doesn't achieve anything. Okay. And then for your closing salutation, would you go with yours faithfully and your name, full it, sincerely and your full name, best regards, full name and contact information. C again, right? So you've sent them an email, but you want to again reinforce what other ways they can contact you, whether it's your email address, whether it's a phone number that they reach you at. If you have your own website, you may want to add that as a tag. So all of you can create signatures, right, for your different email accounts. So just set up a signature so that it automatically just like links to it. If you publish something, if there's an online link available, add that to your signature.
LinkedIn profile?
LinkedIn profile, exactly, right? So the person has very quick access. Because again, what you want to imagine is when someone like me gets an email from students, especially from strangers, I maybe have 2 minutes to make my judgment about whether I should contact you or not. So you need to reduce what's called my cognitive load. Okay, so the cognitive load is if I have to go do the research, if I have to read through the lines, if I have to justify figuring out like what your percentage is worth in GPA, that's too much cognitive load. Okay, because I have too much work to do already. So as much cognitive load that you can reduce, the better the interaction will be in terms of getting an outcome that you want. Okay, so I will. Do you have a question, Manu?
Yeah, I think a quick one or two quick questions.
Okay.
Not too much time, but
Yeah.
let's do that.
There's a question from Sharad Talekar. He says how to work on my pronunciation.
How to work on your pronunciation is through practice and through listening to people who speak the way you want to speak. Right? There is no magic way. We keep telling this to students on our calls to improve pronunciation or to improve your language skills, except through practice. And I tell people now that unlike when we were in school and so forth, you guys have YouTube. Just listen to stuff, right? There is like every country has its own programs. Everything is up there. So you have to listen and you have to imitate. I don't know for sure what apps are good. I know Duolingo is good for other European languages, but I don't know if they have an English version. But at least the one I use for Spanish does allow you a lot of practice, and you can speak into it and it'll tell you if you're on the right track. So maybe look for apps that way, and then you can do it like, while you're traveling and, so forth. It doesn't have to be something special. You can practice.
Also, one thing is if you just type in Google, go to any word that you want to pronounce and just see pronunciation. And you will get the first link that you get is a YouTube link, how it is pronounced. Just play that YouTube link and you'll know how the pronunciation should be.
Yeah, that's the last question.
So if I'm a student, I'm writing to a professor, and even though I think my email is good enough to kind of take the attention of professor, but then somehow it was not that much for her. I mean, she just ignored it. So when I write it again, should I put the previous email saying that I'm following up, or just write a new email fresh?
I always keep the previous email in there. Okay, so that way I can say, so I hit reply to my own previous sent email so that it's there in the bottom, and then I readdress it to the professor and say, like, I'm just following up. I emailed you, and then you can say, as you can see below, 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I'm just repeating my request. Hopefully, you have a chance to look at it right now. So absolutely, always include it. Yeah. Again, the idea of absent-minded professor is not a joke, man. Like a lot of things just go over. So I would definitely wait. And then the last thing I just want to mention that we have a lot of information on writing different kinds of documents that are available on our websites and in our Facebook page and so forth. So if you are not yet a part of our group, you should contact Swaroop and he'll sort of figure out the process of getting you included in there, so you have access to other documents like resumes and statement of purpose and so forth. Okay, so we are building a database of that. So,
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. That was very, very helpful, insightful. I know I work in a lot in India and around the globe, but the kind of email communication like my own employees does, and some of the communication I receive from India, I mean, it's not that it's different. Okay, it's different. We assume a lot of things, in Indian context, and when it comes to especially US, a lot of things are direct and very straightforward. But it's simple actually. In US, communication is actually simpler. Yeah. So you make it simple and take all the lot of what you call loaded words and all that, and the better you are. Okay, that simple thing I can tell you. Okay, our next speaker is dear friend Dr. Suraj Engde. He'll be talking about higher studies, why self-drive is important. Okay, I think Suraj is known to most of you here, but I'll read his bio quickly. Dr. Suraj Engde is Shorenstein Center postdoctoral fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School. At MIT, we call other university. Okay, there's a rivalry between Harvard and
and we call MIT engineering college.
Yeah. Suraj is India's first Dalit PhD holder from an African university in the nation's history. Suraj is a published author in the field of inter-regional labor migration in the global south and caste, race, and ethnicity studies. Currently, he is involved in developing a critical theory of Dalit and Black studies, which is actually a very important work. There's a lot to learn from our movement to, from African American and vice versa. Suraj is an academic activist in the transnational movement of Dalit rights. He is actively involved in building solidarities of Dalit, Black, Roma, Indigenous, Buraku, and refugee peoples, solidarities in the Fourth World Project of Marginalized Peoples. He is a passionate human rights attorney by qualification from India and the UK. He is also an anti-caste and anti-racism advocate and a columnist at the Huffington Post and the Indian Express. So he is also an activist in the transnational movement of Dalit rights. He's a co-convener of a Dalit Black Lives Matter Symposium and a Dalit Black Power Movement. He runs a monthly Ambedkar lecture series, part of the Boston Study Group at Harvard. Suruja offers consultation to the government and non-governmental policy-making bodies on the issues of human rights, social justice, cross-border migration, and organizational strategies for campaigns and advocacy. Let's welcome Dr. Yang. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very delighted that I am here. Very good show put up by all of you. It's been third year in the row, and it's always getting exciting. Thank you all, students as well as friends on the online. I've been told, I've requested some of my friends say, I've requested. Right. I've requested some of my friends in Europe and in other parts, especially France and Lithuania and Romania, to join us because potentially we want to probe that geography in. So, hello everybody who are there, very patiently online. Today, the topic that is given to me, which is higher studies by self-management, is important. Before I enter that topic, let me sort of tag along in a kind of segue to what Jayashree had very, very eloquently given us, very practical, methodical knowledge. One thing is, if you write emails and if you don't get a response, and if you're desperate about it, write a polite reminder 1 time, 2 times. Don't feel hesitation about it. Now, what happened was one of the scholars, he had written to me at one point, and I just couldn't respond. For some reason, it just happened. And then all that he had to do was to write me another reminder or another 2 or 3, doesn't matter. You need to do this work. He just got frozen. And the great opportunity that he had, and I felt so bad about it, and it's not someone's guilt, but what I'm trying to say is, the reason you do that is because you operate from childhood. The caste system has told you not to ask for more. And I think you need to get out of this complex of which tries to discourage your demand, your say in this. And this was a very, this guy is a PhD, and it was a very, shameful kind of incident where a person of a PhD caliber who has a degree from one of the prestigious universities still could not grapple with how to communicate with fellow brothers and sisters in the community or beyond. And the second thing is, within the subject matter of the emails, sometimes we tend to, not go personal, but I think it's also good sometimes, if you are known or if you know this, to add a line or 2 about your own personal kind of veritas so that it kind of enlightens. Now, let me jump into the topic of higher education. Can we go for the next slide, please? Thank you. So, it was now you all might remember, now, you are probably, most of them who are also online and sitting here, maybe your grandfather was one of the workers in one of the factories, or a peasant, or a serf, and most likely your grandfather's father was one of those slaves, servants working in the families of some landowning caste or some village headman. Now, the phase has changed. Within 70 years that we were given opportunity to educate, you have crossed the borders and you are here in the best institutions of the world. What does that mean? That means a generation ago, you were a servant. A generation after, you are going to be the one who is going to decide the fate of many people who will be potentially qualified as servants, and you're going to give them justice. I'm not calling you to become a master because that's a very problematic category. But you are the one who's going to achieve and attain certain levels of professional as well as academic, non-academic dignity that is going to put you into a place where, for which your forefathers and foremothers have enormously sacrificed. The reason they went through all of those humiliating experiences day in and day out, the reason they could go and slaughter and carry the filth of a dead animal, or tanning the leather, or cleaning the human excreta, they did all of this so you can be here. And so whatever you are doing right now is enormous sacrifices of your ancestors. And I think we need to constantly acknowledge. So a generation ago, there was a craze when you got a matric, many of you all remember, because that was the highest qualification our community could have. And then what was it? Go get some clerical job. And that's what you did. You went and applied for a job as when you entered as the lowest third grade or fourth grade employee, and by 15, 20, 25, 30 years of service, you became to the most office superintendent. And then you retired as an office superintendent. Then a phase came, you became an undergraduate. You got, okay, let's get 12th and then let's go to college. And after college, what did you do? Then again, the craze happened. Okay, let's go and get a clerical job. So this time you went for applying to become either a bank clerk or any of the more administrative professions that kind of suited your career. Then the phase changed and then the masters kind of became. Now I'm talking this happening in last 70 years, by the way. This is a transition, how quickly it is improving. Then you got masters, and now if you have masters, you are going for clerical grade jobs. Now you have all people. Now today, this was I was in India about 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to the students who are having master's degree, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" They told me we are in CEP. I said, "What? That's and it's competitive exam preparation." Meaning these people who have master's degree, who have achieved whatever qualification one could even, the US actually, comparatively, I think India would be higher in the per capita kind of, master degree or compared to the people living here. I know at least on the UK, they are not enough. So even after masters, there is no attention as to what to do. The reason I'm trying to highlight through this instance is because maybe your grandfather or father had a matric or undergraduate degree, and maybe they could do something, and in their future life they got to a position where they could only go. But right now you have the opportunity to go to that position straight up. Within 5 to 10 years, you can go to that position that they toiled for 30 to 35 years, constantly working in the office. Now this is a sea change. My father was a chaprasi. He was a bank, he would carry files from one place to another. Now because of education, you can see, I can, the commanding that you have. But that could only happen once you get into the prestigious programs that where you remain sort of unchallenged when it comes to educational achievements. It's a PhD. Now we have to start thinking about ourselves as potential knowledge makers. I always constantly tell you, your education is not simply to consume knowledge, because that's what caste system is. You go sit in the class, you stay silent, and you're given the knowledge, you consume, you don't ask questions. And because of that, your slavery is been continuing. Because you are not owning up and not producing your own knowledge. And because you're not producing your knowledge, people like you are not here. Institutions like MIT or Harvard or BU or Northeastern or whatever university, your experiences are not presented. And therefore, you remain a isolated lone subject. You have no authority, no command. You just go, get a degree, and get out of the way and try to join the labor market. PhD is very important for you, because PhD is the next thing. When I was applying for a PhD, a friend from the community, Sumit, I asked him, he was doing his PhD at Oxford. Actually, I had finished. And I called up him and I say, I am considering PhD. And then one thing he told me that made me very happy. He said, it's a Hindi word, he said, Vidwan. He said, PhD makes you Vidwan. After that, there is no education as to getting a degrees. And I found that exciting, because from childhood, we hear the word, Baba Sahib was a Vidwan. Vidwan, all Vidwan. And then I understood this is actually becoming. And after having a PhD, many of who have a PhD can endorse on this. You become a person of a level where you can engage critically, not just sit silently and enter the labor market. Now, next. So, the reason I am emphasizing on PhD is because you have to attain the highest level of education. You were not allowed to enter schools. When you were given a little opportunity, you got matric. Then you said, okay, let me get undergraduate degree. Then let me get master's degree. And now what you should ask for? PhD degree, because that's a cycle. It's nothing new. It's nothing extraordinary that you're going to do. You're just following the phase. Don't think yourself in this kind of conduits of being lowly subject. The reason is this will help you to get out of the inferiority complex that is put into your head since your childhood. See, caste system does one thing very effectively. It makes you feel inferior in your own body, in your own actions. So whenever you are doing something, you're already considering yourself inferior. You don't think yourself as an equal person or a person who can command, who can rule this stream. Because of caste system, you tend to present yourself as a person with no adequate responsibilities of any sort for yourself, let alone the community. Because inferiority complex is so prominent, the emails you kind of get or the communications you do, it is full laden with a slave mentality. It's very conditioned. And when you are also, like Jayashree was talking about chaplacy, this kind of things come because the inferiority complex is ingrained into your mind. And because this has happened to you over various phases of life, you are automatically thinking about yourself lowly. And so you don't ask for more. You don't think yourself as something that could go beyond this. Now, I was talking to Sanjeev yesterday. There was a Brahmin student who just joined a PhD at Harvard University. And the way he or she engages, it was an amazing kind of performance. And it was about mannerisms. Since childhood, he is taught to rule. Since childhood, we are taught to be subjugated. We have to change that now. And I think education is a sphere that can change that. Whereas we have another Dalit PhD student, there is no sense of commandability. He is living in inferiority complex. It's not his mistake. Because he's been told repeatedly, again and again, for 35 years of his life, that you are an inferior person. You are an inferior person. You are an inferior person. What will he do? His mind is conditioned. Even if he thinks he can do something, he is afraid to do it because he is thinking that he is an inferior person. Next slide. So the reason you want to do this is because you are an inspiration to the community. Never remove yourself out of the community. You are part and parcel of the community. Your education that you are doing is the sacrifices of your parents as well as your community. Now, many of you all don't know this. You all think your achievement is individual. This is very wrong. The reason you got scholarships is not because your father went and protested outside the Jantar Mantar. It's because people who are working class, who are poor and who are across the country, they are fighting for your rights. Do you think your mother went to Shastri Bhavan in Delhi to fight to get your scholarship? Or do you think you got the scholarship from post-matric, or if you were in any higher education or IIM or IIT? No, it is your community who is fighting for you. And so we have to always acknowledge that. Your individual achievement is only one of the other 5 important aspects, which is economic, familial responsibility, the culture you were brought up in, and 4th is about your own individual sort of thing, and the 5th is your community sort of sacrificing for you. So we should always be cognizant of that. The reason you need to do that is because if you understand this, you will understand the greater value you bring to the classroom or to the education that you are pursuing. And this is our primary aim. You see, a Brahmin goes to a school, he or she has to only look after her immediate generation. They don't have to worry because their ancestors have exploited our ancestors and they have all the wealth that they have for their own satisfaction. But you are coming out of nowhere. And so when you go into school or when you go into universities, your primary aim should be focused on the responsibility that your community is looking up to, and they have every right to expect from you. And it's not that you have to start contributing right now. We want you to concentrate into your studies right now. Focus and be the best. And don't leave alternatives which can put you into inferiority complex. The reason you have come here, you have cleared all the obstacles, and you are one of the very few handful people from the community and from India on a large scale who are in this country or in anywhere in the world. You have to pursue this kind of education that will not only lift you up out of your current situation, but your family, your community, and the humanity at large. And therefore, next slide. And therefore, I would like you to think about when you are engaging in any of, let's say, conferences or your basketball tournaments or your whatever curriculum, try to be a winner in the best of those championships. Don't try to be a winner of a mediocre or a lower level scale. That is going to massage your ego and to tell your few friends who are also living in inferiority complex. But when you be the best among the best, this is where you have to crack the code. If you are part of this, you will easily enter into the space. Next, this is the final slide. Your education is not only for yourself. Please remove that into your mind. Yes, that is going to help you in future. But if you add an additional responsibility, which is not to make you more burdened, but to make you more confident. Because if you think about the community, that is something you will always think that you are part of something which no one has been so far. In your family, most probably nobody has come out of the country, let alone the state. So this is something you need to always concentrate. And once you think of your education as a community achievement, then you will see yourself already as a success of a community. And therefore, if you have to look yourself as a success story, start always thinking about yourself within the dreams that your ancestors have laid on your shoulders, that we all expect you to do. And to help you out in any material things, we are always here. We have a whole team of people, and tomorrow you will be all mentors. Thank you.
Okay, let's give a big applause to Suraj. I think he articulated well. I think this is actually, I'm waiting to say a few words, and I think this is a very appropriate time. I, as an MC, I have the luxury of taking a few minutes. Okay, I hope. I think Suraj touched upon a few things which are very, very near to me and what I experienced. Let me tell you a few things, okay?
Venkat.
Where?
Come closer to the computer. Come closer to the laptop.
Yeah.
Why? That's
the one. That's going live.
Okay, good. Okay, so the reservation, right? I mean, we all. I think Baba Sahib at the tail end of his life, he did said, right? All these people who got reservation went and became somebody, or at least crossed that socioeconomic, achieved upward mobility. Really disappointed, right? Not giving back to the community. So the reservation is not given to individual. The reservation is given to represent your community, your people. This is what, and everybody has to. Reservation is not your individual right. Okay, it is given to your community, and you have to represent your community. Otherwise, you're no good. And unfortunately, large majority of the people are not representing. But that's a human beings. I mean, I don't have, some people say, hey, Dalits, we are like this. These guys, no, it is human beings, okay, guys? See, the human beings have, a large section of people are selfish, okay? So among us also, we're selfish. But good thing is, the large amount of people are getting educated. You'll see a critical mass of, the small section. That is what is going to change. And we are at a stage, we are getting as more and more people are educated. We're creating this small critical mass. Those are the ones who are going to make a change, okay? So Suraj touched upon talking about these applying for jobs and all that. At this stage, I mean, after traveling through, my journey of, and coming up in the corporate level, I am very convinced, and I have a lot of my good friends who made it to IAS, IPS, and I also have now very good network of bureaucrats in India at various levels, because I'm 50 years and I have a lot of friends in that. So one thing I can tell, I'm not proud of our bureaucrats at all. Okay, I'm pretty disappointed. And one thing, it's so unfortunate that our cream has gone to become, the bureaucrats, and it became. I mean, I wouldn't say there are always exceptions. I mean, there is, like I said, there's a good and bad, but the overwhelming majority of them have become slaves, okay, literally slaves to the system, to the politicians, to the ruling class. Okay, that is I can say that anywhere, anytime, in front of anybody. Okay, so we lost that cream. Unfortunately, this is the cream of our society, and all the fight put up by our, Baba Sahib, to all the people to get that constitutional guarantee is created like Suraj say. I mean, I used to say that my parents, my grandfathers, they were wearing dhoti and lungi or whatever, right? And they were slaves. Today we are wearing suit, boot, but became slaves. There's no difference. There's no difference. I mean, so it's very disappointing, but of course we cannot help it. And even the new production of these bureaucrats coming up, it's again same. I don't see much difference. But one good thing is, I would encourage all the bright minds to go to private sector. Okay, leave the government. The private sector, I mean, people like us could go, and as I said, right, I can speak. Today I go to India in many forums. Like I was speaking in a 300 people, bureaucrats in Hyderabad, in all our communities. I could say like this to them. I don't have a problem. That is what the private sector gives you. You're free to think, you're free to say, you're free to express, and I respect. Just a minute. I would insist on the bright minds to explore. Go for higher education, they'll go for private sector, go for academia, and I think you will have a much better chances of serving your communities. Okay, so I think with that I want to end. And one last thing, excuse me. So Suraj Bade, your brain is conditioned, okay, conditioned to feel inferior. The whole system is conditioned. My community friends, oh, they're Brahmins, they're intelligent, that fellow idiot said it's genes, what, it's like, this is all the, talk, and we need to reverse that. Actually, when I learned, right, I went into Usmania University with a reservation. I have a backward BC reservation, I took it. And then the only discussion, we didn't have a lot of caste discussion in the university campus, but reservation, non-reservation. I mean, it's a reservation, we all like BC, SC, STs, we had a very good camaraderie in at least Telangana. We didn't have a big difference, and we all were united in many respects. There was hardly any divisions, but a reservation, non-reservation debate, and we were made to believe you're not meritocrat, all this nonsense of merit. See, this is MIT you're in, and Harvard, we have our colleagues are there. You never hear a word merit here, and you can understand these are the world-class institutions. This stupid merit, what they measure is, in India, it conditions your brain that, by using reservation, you're non-meritorious. And that actually stuck to me a lot. Okay, that stuck to me a lot. And then I came to United States, and of course, I did pretty well in my academics when I did here. Then I started talking about this. Okay, I was not very big activist back in India. Then I started talking stand-up, and I am a reservation candidate in big forums. The first day I landed at MIT, in my class, there were 100 people and 10 of them were Indians. When I told them, they were all appalled that I could come here. When I was at my PhD, one guy after 6 months said, I never believed you're from reservation candidate. I was doing very well in academics. So, that take it out of your brain. Okay, take it out of your brain. That's a mental block I told you. Okay, and you have equal potential to achieve anything like anybody else. With that, I want to stop. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Okay, now the next speaker is Sumedh Bele. It's coming from online, right?
Yeah.
Higher studies and opportunities in Canada. Okay, yeah, given the situation in US, actually, the Canada is one very good alternative. I know a number of people studying in Canada, and I think that Sumedh is going to talk about it. Dr. Sumedh Bele is pursuing a PhD in the Department of Community Health Sciences at the University of Calgary in Canada. He specializes in health services research. His doctoral project focuses on the integration of the patient-reported outcome measures in pediatric patients with asthma. Prior to his PhD, Sumedh completed MBBS and MPH degrees from China. Additionally, he has completed advanced short courses on research in international and public health from Japan, Belgium, Poland, Finland, and India. To date, Sumedh completed all his higher education through 11 scholarships to studentships at the institutional, provincial, and international levels. Sumedh has also received numerous distinction awards, honors, including National Delegate, representing India at Asia Europe Foundation's International Youth Exchange Program. outstanding graduate and postgraduate student, and international cultural exchange ambassador. While completing his PhD, Sumedh is taking several student leadership roles as a mentor, PhD student representative, and academic events coordinator. In Calgary, he has organized several academic and non-academic events to create awareness about caste-based discrimination in India and abroad. He is also involved in various payback to society initiatives, but he is most passionate about mentoring students interested in studying abroad. Sumedh hails from Amravati, Maharashtra. He enjoys watching documentaries and debating social political issues, and is fluent in Chinese. Let's welcome Dr. Sumedh Bell.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sumedh. Please go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Everyone, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And thank you, Dr. Venkat, and thank you, Suraj, for such a inspiring speech. So, as we all know, the importance of higher education. So when all the students who wants to come abroad to study, don't just look at US. There is a country next to US which offers great opportunities as well. So that's why my lecture, I've titled this as Canada, why an appealing destination for international students. So there are several reasons why Canada is appealing to international students so much. Not only because of the recent administration in US, but there are so many other opportunities that Canada offer, or advantages that Canada offer, and students from our background especially can benefit from that. My name is Sumedh. I'm a third-year PhD student here at the University of Calgary. I've studied in different parts of the world, and I'm really enjoying my education here. And I think a lot of students from our background can benefit from the education here. So Canada is, as most of you must have heard, I'm especially addressing my speech towards students in India, because most of the people who came, who are already in US or in other parts of the world, they are well aware of global opportunities for education, including Canada. But for the students from India, I always try to promote Canada as a very good destination for several reasons. First, Canada is a very vast country with a very less population. So the population of Canada is just 35 million, and the country is very big. So it's a country made of immigrants, and it always encourages immigration, and that's a very good destination for international students. If you look at the cities, there was just last month there was a ranking of cities, most livable cities, and in fact 3 of the Canadian cities made it to the list. Top 10 made it to the list of top 10 most livable cities, including Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary. And I'm living in Calgary. In fact, Calgary was ranked as the most livable city in North America. And so the country offers a lot of avenues. It's a very good country to live in. And if you look at the country, it's very multicultural. It's a country made of immigrants, and the country has really high standard of living. So, for example, healthcare is free here. In Canada, there is universal healthcare, and education is free. I would go in details about why studying in Canada is such an appealing. It's such an appealing avenue for students. There's also recently we have been getting a lot of calls or contact. We're getting contacted by people from even US who want to move to Canada, because a lot of people have been staying in US and there is so much uncertainty about work visas and about spouses not able to work for various number of reasons. But Canada, on the other hand, is more welcoming. So a lot of people are thinking to move to Canada for studying and for even staying here after their studies. Getting visa to Canada is much easier compared to US. I'll again go into a little bit of details. So for those of you who want to come to study in Canada, basically you can enter at two different types of institutions. You can either go to college or you can go to the university. Now, the reason I'm clearly laying this out is because a lot of times students in India, because in India we refer to a lot of institutions as college, medical college, or this college or that college. So a lot of times students, they apply, when they look at the universities in Canada, they would look like, oh, this is a college. Maybe it's similar to what we have in India, but actually it's different. So here in Canada, the colleges and universities are differentiated based on the type of education they provide. So colleges provide more education in the realm of professional courses, trade, industrial jobs, this kind of education qualifications. While universities are focused more into the research-intensive universities, the quality of education at universities is much higher than colleges. Colleges are not that bad, especially in Canada, because they create this workforce who work mostly in the industry. But universities, they offer these great opportunities for research-intensive programs. So at colleges, you can do certificates or diploma. These are after you have finished your 12th. And those are 1 or 2 years programs. There are also some colleges that offer postgraduate diploma. So if you don't want to do a complete master's, or you don't get into master's program, then you can do this 1 or 2 years postgraduate diplomas. On the other hand, the universities, they offer bachelor's, master's, and PhD programs. Bachelor programs in Canada are 4 years. Masters are 2 years, 1 or 2 years. PhDs are 3 or 4 years. A lot of times, one more reason, one more problem some of the students from India face is because some of the degrees they have are 3 years degrees, and a lot of universities in Canada, when you apply for master's program, they want you to have a 4 years program. So some of the students, they do 1 year postgraduate diploma in college, and then they on top of their 3 years bachelor's, and then they get into the master's program. But here particularly, I'll be speaking about, you can see I highlighted these two programs. One is PhD and one is thesis-based masters. So masters are of two types. One is course-based, one is thesis-based. Course-based is basically you just take the courses, give the exams, and after you pass all your exams, once you're done, you get your degree. For thesis-based programs, it's basically you are doing research. And the reason I've highlighted these two is because I want to promote these two degrees among the students, especially from our communities, for various reasons that I will explain in the next slide. So PhD is a research-based degree, and masters, thesis-based masters is also a research-based degree. So why studying in Canada? So the most important reason that I have highlighted here, as you can see in the middle, is get paid for studying. So in Canadian universities, there is a provision called guaranteed funding. So what guaranteed funding is basically when you apply for a research-based master's or a PhD program, you are guaranteed to get funding. That means you don't need to apply for any scholarship. So when you apply to a university for a research-based master's or PhD program and you have your supervisor, supervisors are required to have enough funds with them to accept any student. So if a faculty member does not have enough grant to provide to a student, master or PhD, they cannot accept those students. And this is very helpful for students, because when the students from India, from our background, usually money is one of the biggest problem. So this provision is really helpful for students. And the range in which you can get the graduate funding, it can range from 21,000 to 40,000 per year. I have seen people who are getting $40,000 per year as a package, and that's Canadian dollars. It's still 15 to 20 lakh rupees for 1 year. So basically, you are studying and you are getting stipend, and that's not even considered scholarship. That's just funding, and everyone gets it. So if you started your master's and you have 30 students in your class, everybody is getting that stipend. You don't need to put a special application for that. So this is a very good advantage, and the reason for this is because Canadian government is a welfare state, and they pay so much attention to education. So this is the same provision they have for local students, which also applies to international students. So the students who have financial problems but who still want to go to study abroad should consider Canada for this one very important reason. Then also, even when you apply for visa, for example, in Canada, you just need to show bank balance for in your account just for 1 year, and that's around $10,000. That means 5 lakh rupees. You just need to show that you have enough funds to support yourself for first year of your study, and that's just 5 lakh rupees. Your students can manage that. And once you are here, you can basically do part-time jobs, or you get your stipend, which is more than enough to sustain your studies. Then there are other reasons. First one is it offers world-class education opportunities. Then these are all government universities. I'll just give you a very small example. Actually, last 2 years, my university, my department returned part of my tuition fees. They said we have some money left, and we just thought we don't know how to use it. So that's why we are just returning this, $2,000 per semester. So last year they returned me $6,000 of my tuition fee, what I had paid. They said we have some money left over. I mean, I couldn't imagine any other university doing that. That's on top of the scholarship or the funding I get. So we have lower tuition fees in Canada. One more reason is there are a lot of internship and co-op opportunities. Then there is also proximity to USA. A lot of universities, a lot of students who are studying in Canada, they can go to USA to work. I know a number of people who study here, and the degrees they receive are really research intensive, so they have a lot of opportunities in industry or in academic institutions in US. It's easy to immigrate, so for those of you who want to immigrate to Canada while studying, you can apply. Actually, universities here have immigration consultants at the universities, and they help students to immigrate. They guide students how you can submit your applications for immigration. So universities are pro-immigration, and they help students. And in future, if you want to stay in Canada, so as I mentioned, you can get Canadian permanent residency while studying. So a lot of students I know, I am in the process. You get additional points for studying and staying here, and you can apply for Canadian permanent residency, after which your tuition fee reduces significantly. You get additional benefits. One more thing that you get is up to 3 years of post-education work permit, open work permit. So what open work permit gives you is an opportunity to work in any sector, anywhere you work, any industry after your education. And basically, to get Canadian citizenship after you have PR, you just need 3 years of residency in Canada. So a lot of consultants usually package the Canadian education as a ticket to immigrate to Canada. So they tell that you do a 2 years program, you get 3 years of open work permit, and that's it. You are a Canadian citizen by the end of those 5 years. So a lot of times they offer such packages. Then there is also one more advantage for those of you who might be married, that you have your spouse gets open work permit. So while you are studying, your wife can work. I'm married, and my wife she has open work permit, so she also works. She works here, and that helps supporting our family. Then there is free healthcare and education. So while you are studying here, you get all the benefits, all those benefits that the local Canadians get, including healthcare. So you have free healthcare. So while I'm studying, if I have to undergo any surgery or anything, any major surgery, anything, it's all covered under healthcare. Healthcare here, because everyone has a free healthcare. I don't need to pay a single penny. Since I came here, it's been 2 years, 3 years. I went to see a physician for some reasons, but still I never paid a single penny for my healthcare. That's an advantage for students. Then there is education. So if you have children, they can basically attend schools for free. They don't have to pay any money for education. And actually, if you are studying and you get, for example, you become a father or something, and you are as a student, you still come under low income category. So government actually pays you $800 or $1,000 as a fund to support your child's to support your children, or to take care of your children. So these are all the benefits. Then Canada is, of course, is a multicultural and immigrant friendly society. Canadians are famous worldwide to be very polite and very friendly people, and that I have found is really true. Now, when you look at the other aspects, pros and cons, then usually on internet we get to see this kind of meme where people, always make fun of Canada for their weather. I would say weather is one of the aspect, but once you live in such place like in Canada, where the weather is very harsh or very cold, the life people here, they get used to living in this kind of environment. So the cons, I would say, are one of the cons is weather. Second is market size, because Canada's population is so small. It's sparsely populated country, so a lot of times people might find getting job a bit harder. Not all, of course. If you're studying here, you get a lot of networking opportunities, so it's easier. But if some people are directly coming to Canada, for them market size might be a problem. But then you can, US is just right next to Canada, so you can look for opportunities in US as well. But on the pro side, if you look at that, Canada is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It has really nice natural landscape. The province I'm staying in, the province of Alberta, is one of the most beautiful provinces. I have a picture on the next slide, which I will tell you that it's just next to the place I'm living. Then Canadian workers get really higher salaries compared to other developed nations. The inequity, there is the difference between salaries is much less. So people even doing lower level jobs earn quite good amount of salaries in Canada. Then there are social security benefits, like even you're working, you get all the benefits that a local Canadian get. Then safety, this is one of the point which I would like to highlight compared to staying in US. So Canada has very strict gun control laws, so violence and crime is very low. In fact, the ranking that I had mentioned earlier, where Canada and Canadian cities rank really high, that also considers crime rate as one of the key aspect. So Canadian cities, Canada in general, is much safer than other developed countries. So I would recommend all of you who are listening, who are interested, those who are in other parts of the world doing masters, if you want to do PhD, come to Canada. Canadian universities are also highly ranked universities around the world. Education is really one of the major focus of Canadian government. So it is inclusive, and they always encourage internationalization of their universities. So they always welcome international students. So if you see this picture, this last slide I have, this place is Banff, Rocky Mountains, very beautiful. This place is literally just 1 hour drive from the city I'm living in. So that's why here in Canada, here in Calgary especially, we usually say that your dream destination is our weekend. So come to Canada, there are a lot of opportunities. We have WhatsApp group guiding people for permanent residency in Canada. Through this initiative in US, we are also going to mentor students who are interested in Canada. This year we have 5 students starting masters and PhD programs in Canada, and these students all are willing to mentor future students. So feel free to reach out to us. You can Google me, my name. You can also find me on Facebook, connect with me, and I'm happy to help. Thank you, Njay.
Okay, thank you, Vinaya. I think that was good marketing for Canada.
I'm sold.
Yeah. Good. Should become a brand ambassador. But honestly, there's actually a lot of good opportunities. A lot of it's overlooked, and some of it happened. My friend's son got rejected US visa, and he ended up going to Canada. Just 1.5 years back before Trump came, and he's so happy now. Actually, it's really a real thing. Anyway, next speaker is Rahul Pagare. He's going to talk about higher studies and opportunities in UK. Quick introduction. Rahul Pagare is brought up in Mumbai, completed his BE Electronics from Mumbai University, and has over 20 years of experience in IT, in product development and IT services. Moved to UK 11 years ago and has been working in the insurance industry. He strongly believes in education and entrepreneurship, along with political representation is the key to success for our community. I think he likes traveling, photography, cooking, and have a keen interest in learning other cultures. So let's welcome Rahul Pagare.
Yeah, so he's on webcam.
Okay.
Can do more. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
He's
That's fine. Waiting.
Yeah, I can start.